Well, thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Just layout for what we're going to do today. We're going to do bottom up. We're going to start local with Kevin LeBlanc, one of our own, new mayor of Herndon. Is going to give us a few remarks and thoughts about what's happening in Herndon locally, and hopefully use him as a model. Did he just disappear on me? Oh, there he is. And then we're going to talk about Richmond, some of the things that are happening there, and then at the federal level, or work our way up. Obviously, the inauguration's happening. As most of you know, I was worked for a federal lobbying firm, actually number one firm at the time for 10 years, executive VP. And the founder of our company used to say, you only want to get on and off at one place on a roller coaster, and that's on the bottom. Don't get off while the ride's happening, right? You can't get on while the ride's not going, and you can't get off because someone's going to get hurt. And that's the same thing for when you're involved in the legislative process. You get on and off when it's on the ground and it's starting up. Once it's going, just be careful because you're going to get hurt. You don't get off too soon and you can't jump on. So I feel like we missed a little bit opportunities, especially with the cargo and what we're doing. The VDP looks like they put in some things for the microchips, did not have anything for the cargo, but I got some ideas that we might be able to work it. And I've been trading emails with Eric on what they're looking for in the future. But and I don't want to build them up too much. But Kevin, everybody knows who you are. Congratulations on becoming mayor. That was hard fought, and I know you've got some big plans. But Kevin is also a model for us on how he thinks about legislation, what he does for the vision. And several months ago, I was with Kevin and literally had the opportunity to talk to one of the delegates, and he was shaping legislation months ago. That's exactly where we need to be. And so Kevin's going to talk a little bit about what his plans are for Herndon, which is right outside the gate of Dulles Airport, but more importantly, what that means for the workforce and the initiatives that he's been talking about. So Kevin, the floor is yours, wide open, and thanks for joining us. Congratulations.
Great.
Thanks. A second. And let me just interrupt for you that are just have joined us. We are recording this meeting. Kevin.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, John. I appreciate it. And thanks everyone again. Herndon, we're really going to, my goal is to transform. I'm meeting with staff on a regular basis. I've given them the mission that every week I want to understand what are the top 5 most innovative and creative initiatives and what have we accomplished from the last 5 from the week before. So we're doing a lot of things. If I start at some of the things locally, obviously, we have economic development is really critical and something that I think about all the time, given my personal background in running businesses and looking at what would help the town the most. We've hired an outside consultant to help us to get together an economic development plan. One of the key initiatives, part of our comprehensive plan, our 35-year comprehensive plan, I've added in 2 new subplans, one an economic development plan, which will guide us over the next 35 years, and one an environmental sustainability plan. So to protect and preserve the environment as we move forward with our development and economic development and other things. So we have that. In line with that, we also have an outside consultant working with Fairfax County to come in and assess housing, diversity of housing needs, and we're limited in Herndon because the town of Herndon itself is only 4.2 square miles. So most of which is already developed, but giving us ideas on how to be creative. On the creative aspect, I'll be happy to send the book out, but one of the things I did with the entire leadership team in December, their Christmas gift for me was a book written by someone who was in public service in the city of Boston, and it was about how to take legislation and stop thinking about the status quo and obviously we're heavily confined by laws and policies, but how do we think differently to achieve those objectives that we want? An example recently in town, I asked about as we're doing economic development, could I offer meals tax rebates to those restaurants that are improving the physical look or expanding in the town of Herndon to another site. And I was told, Dillon rule, we're not permitted based on the meals tax structure. And I'm like, okay, if we collect the meals tax, can I give them an incentive back, right? Can we write that and I give them payment? And they're like, oh, yeah, well, we could do that. Never really thought about it. So, right? So there's always multiple ways to address this. Scott, I believe you were talking about at a luncheon about tourism and other things. So I've already directed the staff to create a tourism board for the town of Herndon to focus more on how do we capture. We are so close to Dulles, and we're the only town that has a metro stop within our borders in Virginia. So really, how do we capitalize on these things as well as the charms? So I initiated and I'm wrapping up now a rebranding of the town. We hired outside placemaker consultants who all they do is brand towns and municipalities, which branding for town and municipality is extremely different than doing that for a public company or a product. So we've determined, we looked at people movement data, we looked at lots of surveys of residents, we did focal groups to include some of our minority populations and non-English speakers. We had people out there in neighboring communities up to 50 miles away to see what the brand thoughts were about Herndon from other places. And we've come up with 4 brand pillars. Location, 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 right? So being so close to Dulles Airport, having a metro stop, and so close to DC. So it creates this tremendous corridor that brings so much uh, travel and ease, but also so much in terms of rich diversity and other opportunities. Diversity being another one of our brand pillars, that we have incredible diversity of businesses, incredible diversity of our populations. Again, I think that's a large part due to proximity both to the capital and also to Dulles Airport, which airports tend to bring in greater diversity into those regions.
Hey, Kevin, what's the name of the book from Boston that you gave out?
I'll have to get it for you.
Okay.
And I'll put it in the chat once I grab it after I finish.
And I would take credit for 2 metro stations.
Yes, well, one's not technically in the border, but yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah. Third brand pillar was that we have a very unique identity. Right? There are historical landmarks. There's the W&OD with the biking and the depot and the caboose. So there's something that's very visible, and we have a unique downtown, which John knows for years in my volunteer service, I've capitalized on that, right? So festivals, winter market, using that as a setting and a placemaking to bring together businesses, civic organizations, and residents to build new things. So when I've been asked by McLean or other groups about how to do that and how to achieve that success, it does come down to an identity and having an identity that people can rally behind or creating that identity in some fashion. And then the fourth one was that we're a very friendly place. So we're working through taglines and some shifts of logo and other things, which will be coming up very soon that we'll be able to present to council and then to everyone else. But we're really looking at a full refresh of the town of Herndon and how do we present ourselves? How do we present ourselves differently when we're going out to build our economy? So we have a new development director, so a little different. We had an economic development manager who was mostly focused, which is also very important, on the businesses that were here in town, ribbon cuttings, those kinds of things. I plan on going out every month to at least 10 different businesses and really spending time with them. But the economic development director, my guidance to him is I want us looking outside for how do we bring the businesses that we want to attract into the town of Herndon. So, we're implementing CRMs and other things that support that and allow us to move out with that approach. In terms of some of the legislative things, so John, you mentioned that I had been working on legislation. You can ask Delegate Shin. I think you heard her when she mentioned before my presence on the town council, Herndon really hadn't had a legislative agenda for about 4 years. I think it's crucial, right, that we are working with our regional partners and also our state and federal partners, for that matter, on things that are important to our region and to the town. And my view is definitely that the town does not sit in isolation. We are interconnected. We are part of a larger region. That's why I very specifically have told the council that I am staying on committee for Dulles. I think it's one of the most active and great organizations to look at the region as a whole. I have been working with Delegate Shin specifically, given that we have a metro stop in the borders of the town, on getting the state to fund a first mile, last mile service. So looking at a very short, either direct, bring people from the metro to points within 1 mile, or specifically kind of a very basic route that's different than our bus systems that Fairfax County Connector provides. So really looking at our three epicenters, so Sunset Business Park, downtown, and Worldgate, and kind of doing that circuit to bring people on the town side for right now. Obviously, there's a the larger Herndon side, but we could control and we have more destination points on the town side. So we felt for a study, this would be appropriate. It also would give us the ability to look at, as it relates to housing and workforce needs of people. We do have so many people that go to Dulles Airport for work, that live in the town. So creating something that's faster for them to get to the metro so that they can access Dulles Airport even more easily. In the town, we had long talked about, several residents have talked about like a trolley service or something. So this would be the basis for understanding if we were to bring this after the study, what it would take to get something like this up and running, what it would take from business and town resources to make that happen. Another very important thing we have to think about as we grow, and for us, we have lots of plans around our HTOC, which is the high density area at the metro itself, and then the TRG, the transit related growth area, which extends down to Spring Street around the Herndon Parkway. So we're in the process. We've updated the comprehensive plan for these. In the HTOC, the immediate area, we've approved some of the site plans and so forth for the first buildings. The TRG, we're working on zoning. But as we look at that and ushering in a new age of Herndon and the development that will come, we also want to look at land use taxes. So in the Commonwealth, there have only been 4 cities that have been given the ability to actually tax based on land as opposed to the improvements upon the land or personal property and other things, which can create some issues. Someone could sit on the land potentially and land speculate and do other things which aren't necessarily helping the town and the residents with their share of the costs of other municipal services. So we've asked, and Delegate Shin and Senator Boysko are both bringing this. We're looking for a study to be done first to see if there are any potential negative impacts that we're not thinking about, especially in other areas. It's a little different, I think, in Northern Virginia as it relates to land and land value. But to give municipalities, including towns, the ability to apply land taxes. We've certainly been pushing, as have lots of municipalities. So Brandon, I'm sure you're also familiar with this. I believe that Leesburg and other places in Loudoun County have been pushing as well. We really would like more ability for municipalities to employ traffic light cameras to help with congestion. That's definitely a Northern Virginia problem. And our police forces are already taxed, and other issues in terms of recruitment that we see at the national level, though Herndon thankfully has a great police department and is one of the only fully staffed ones in the Commonwealth, but we still need the assistance. And so these traffic light cameras are very important. We are employing drone and other camera technology around the perimeter of the town. Again, we don't act in isolation. And so being able to have these technologies to help us with pursuing criminal elements that may be coming from outside of our borders through the town, or if they commit a crime in Herndon, being able to follow them and know where they are, so that we, as we work with other police departments or the sheriff. I have approved that, and we're moving forward with that. Brandon, I see the hand up. Is there
Yeah.
something? Yeah.
Yeah, I did have a quick question, and thank you for being so thorough. So, one of the things that I've been doing in the economic development side is always looking at technology and infrastructure as it relates to not only public safety but also transportation. Is the town, and this is just, this is not a loaded question, but is the town looking to take advantage of any of those tax incentives for connected localities, connected towns in terms of electrification and charger infrastructure for electric vehicles and usages kind of along those lines?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a great staff in terms of looking at grants or other incentives that we can take advantage of. We, as part of that environmental sustainability plan, obviously things like charging stations, though we're limited on town-owned land, but how do we where can we do it on town-owned land, but then also how can we create incentives and pass through incentives for developing areas within the town's borders. We also, I instigated I don't want to say a study, but we're moving forward with an upgrade on all town-owned buildings towards environmental sustainability. And so there's a company that we can work with that actually comes in, determines what they can do and kind of offsets the cost. So I'd have to get you the name of the company, but basically they will do all of the upgrades necessary to make it more energy efficient and do other things. And they will set what the target savings are over time with energy and the impacts. And then they basically amortize the costs. So that way the residents are not footing a very large tax bill to do all of this at once, but seeing the benefits of that environmental impact, and they're held to SLAs to keep to the energy efficiencies that they've defined. So, these are just a few of, the big things going on. We're still at a destination town with all of our incredible events. I call on Winter Market because that's one that I personally lead, and John and I worked many years on. We created that, John, maybe 7 years ago. First one, we had 7,000 people. Since then, we've been at 10 to 12,000 visitors. We have about 65 of our local small businesses who all say that they sell out and have their best days ever. So we are looking to continue to propagate that model. For those of you familiar with the old Herndon Festival, 2026, I am bringing the Herndon Festival 2.0 back to the town. And the reason why I'm targeting 2026 is that is the 250th anniversary of the country. So I'm planning a very big celebration. We'll start with Herndon Festival. We will end with the 4th of July fireworks that we do at Brady Park. And in between, we will have an event or something every weekend for those 4 weeks. We are also planning on the 150th anniversary of the town. So last night at our town meeting, I created a Herndon Day proclamation. The 150th anniversary is 2029, but I want to put it in the ethos of everyone and really start to plan what we're going to do for that year-wide celebration within the town, and really helping to launch us, as a town with all of these different initiatives and things that we will have hopefully done in the next 4 years. My term is only 2. We'll see what happens next year, but I have big plans and a lot of things that will go multi-year. So I've encouraged the council to recognize that we are not just going to look at the past, but someday today is the past. And we need to be thinking in the context of every small decision that we make is impacting 10, 20, 50 years down the road. And so I don't want to focus on certainly we have to deal with the nitnoy things, but, no longer do I want, meetings that go to 2 a.m., piddling over $2,000. We need to be thinking about what are the major changes and future things. So I've also administratively change procedures. I've divorced our work sessions from our public hearings so that work sessions can be focused on collaboration. I'm setting a whole different tone in the town. I've directed staff late January, early February. They're finding a space for me, but I will be delivering the first state of the town address. And hopefully that's something that I and any of my successors will start to do. So versus what has happened, we'll be focusing to community residents and businesses on what is going to happen, what our plans are, and be more transparent and integrative in terms of Q&A and other things and getting their involvement. Economic development wise, I had created an ad hoc committee structure. So towns, municipalities have boards and commissions. A lot of times those don't work as well as what we had hoped because they're very artificial and we have to appoint people by council and so forth. So I found a way around it, right? Creative thinking. So ad hoc structures allow town staff to define people, but on economic development, it means that rather than trying to have an economic development board that includes members from different sectors and different sizes, and they don't have the same needs, I can find a very specific topic. So let's say it's around hotel needs and just get hotel entrepreneurs involved. If it's something around the mom and pop and entrepreneurs and how they work with the town or how they market, I can set up that and we have specific things and we get the inputs and then we move on to the next thing. And these can work in serial. I'm also changing all of our other boards and commissions in terms of their structures, their missions, and how they're organized. For example, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We created that. I was one of the first members. I'm the only member who's actually ever given an input that the town has been able to use. It frequently didn't meet because it had, 12 members and you have to have quorum and they could never all get together and they were just community members. So they talk about having an event. So I am changing that to an outreach community engagement board where I then assign people from different groups so some of them will be faith-based, some of them will be community-based, in particular cultural communities, some of them will be different organizations, but basically so that way then they can extend the reach of the things that the town is doing and give us feedback on particular topics. So Brandon, this is a model that I've taken a little bit borrowed from Leesburg, in terms of how they handle some of their things. So it's a hybrid there. We are all about, again, regional connections. So I've directed the staff, I want to know what's best of breed throughout the region or outside of Virginia to look at and consider as we decide what's right for us.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much. Hopefully you're using Trello or something to keep track of all this.
Yes, absolutely.
And I do want to acknowledge Jeff Bentley from Northwest. When you talked about Winter Market and all the great events, they wouldn't have happened without the support of Northwest. And I know Jeff, originally we met on an economic development committee or commission in Herndon and were able to develop a relationship and some trust and confidence. And Jeff really focused on his headquarters and how to give back to Herndon. It's been a great story. So Jeff, did you just want to say something?
Yeah, and thanks for that shout out, John. Kevin, I'm super excited to hear that you want to bring back the festival. Have you found an opportunity within downtown to be able to host it, or do you need us to help you again?
Yeah, absolutely. Always looking for your help. And I think that we talked, recently about, setting up more meetings with you and I to really kind of talk about the partnership with the town at Northwest. Again, nothing operates in isolation. So I really want the town staff to think more about how do we deliver things with our community partners. So the civic organizations, the businesses, and so forth. So we are looking for the Herndon 2.0. We're going to start small. So more like Winter Market in that footprint, but in the summer, we can also use the lawns. So we'll introduce a few other elements. We're probably not going to do the carnival part this year. That's the part that always requires so much land and other supervision and other things. So I appreciate it. We can talk about how to engage Northwest in a meaningful way in that kind of setting. And then we'll look at what does the future mean for that. But it's important that we bring something back.
Well, and just know I'm here to help. So if you need us to do anything, just let me know. I'm excited.
I will
Great
take you up on that.
Good.
Thanks, Jeff.
Good.
I want him to expand his border so he could be my mayor too.
We had someone last night who suggested that we become a city. I'm like, I don't think Herndon's ready for that.
Any other questions for Kevin?
Yes, John. Exciting stuff, Kevin. You've been mayor how long?
Last week.
You've done a lot already in thought, so that's very good. You were talking about getting Herndon to expand economic development and to attract businesses from outside of the town of Herndon. I was just curious, how much available FAR do you have in total that's already developed and not being used and potentially could be developed based on any comp plan?
That I'll have to get back to you, Scott. I'm not quite certain. So we have our new economic development manager, Mark, who came to us from Arlington, I believe. And so he was getting a footing and assessment of all of these metrics and other things for us. So I have a meeting with him next week to really kind of understand what the current state is and then how do we move forward. So that's coming. I can certainly provide that after.
Okay.
Awesome.
I was curious, so thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. Hey, just want to turn now briefly to Richmond, and Kevin talked about Delegate Shin. She's been great, really active, and stepped into some leadership roles, vice chair for one of the committees. But when I look briefly, because I want to save a few minutes for federal discussion, and Scott's going to help us out with that. But Senator Boysko has a bill that she's chairing on transportation networks. It's really about cargo. Big transports. Not really anything with the airport. Delegate Delaney, who chairs transportation, has a bill on sex trafficking, which is one of her hot buttons. Important for the area, is great, but again, not something that deals with the business necessarily of the airport. There's some other bills on rail funds, GO grants, PPPs, workforce, all things that are not really focused on Dulles, but we might be able to leverage some of it. There's some things on Virginia Sports Tourism Fund, the solar canopies, there's solar, there's data centers, Virginia Community College looking at the solar workforce, the Dulles Greenway tolls are an issue, and then there's some parking facility taxes. Right? So it's okay, but and not to be too bold, but when I used to do the lobbying stuff, I joke when I came home that I wanted to see the news to see if it's reporting the things that I did or I'd planned to do. So if you're impacting it, right, I can tell you what the future is going to be, right? We can also create the future by making those investments and figuring out where we want to go. And it takes some time. And you saw what Kevin has done, right? Those aren't, he didn't just come up with that in the week since he became mayor. He's been thinking about that. He took action back when we were doing Winter Market and has the experience, right? He's got experience with program management. He's run a business. He sold a business, a big business, right? To Booz Allen. This isn't little stuff. And so,
well, that was the third business I sold.
Yeah,
still,
right,
yes.
right. Yeah, but it's that kind of experience that we've got on this committee for Dulles that we need to leverage, that deeper thinking. And Jeff, we talked down in Virginia, how come you're not on the Virginia, Chamber of Commerce, right? And we got a seat for the credit unions. So there's things we need to be pushing and leaning forward on that I think start with a little bit like what Kevin's saying, start with the study. So we need to start thinking about, hey, we need some study money. It may not require a full bill, but we can get something in there that talks about looking at cargo. United Airlines just built they're building, because I drive by it when I go to church, the training center for the future, airline staff, right? For stewardesses or air attendants, flight attendants. A couple hundred people a month are going to pass through there, right? That's tremendous for the economy. They're out there building out this center. So we need to be thinking about are there some grants? Are there some tax breaks that we can get for our members at the airport? How do we be thinking about this? The tourism piece that Kevin talked about, when I worked in the old town hall, I had people all the time knocking on the door. I'm walking to get a cup of coffee, asking about the trains and they're all over the place. We've got the Smithsonian. We've got all sorts of places up and down. We've got, again, back to Jeff with the Children's Science Museum, right? We got the Special Ops Museum. We've got all sorts of things in this area that attract tourism. So I think that's part of what we do at the Dulles Airport that we need to be thinking about. So I'd like to go deeper on the Virginia and Richmond, and that's going to take time down there. I may run down the next week or two. And Scott, we talked about doing something at crossover, but at the executive committee yesterday, we had some ideas about coming together with the elevator speeches and getting some information flyers out that we can prioritize. So I want to turn it over now to Scott to talk quickly about federal, and then I want to wrap up with a couple ideas. I'm sorry that Brandon left, but I'll get back to him with a couple of thoughts on where we might go and consider for the future. Scott?
Well, I think he's run into another, which is why he had to disappear. And I want to go back to the state a little bit, John. Not everything needs legislation to have an impact. And cargo, interestingly enough, when I got back from Turkey on Friday, I came across what was it? Oh, it was Richard Golanowski's report to DAMAC. DAMAC is the Dulles Airport Airlines Managers Council, and they meet once a month. And we are actually a part of that, in that we're able to attend, and toward the end of the meeting, they give us time, if we want to take it, to make announcements. But anyway, within terms of the discussion about cargo, well, they recently had the governor up at the airport, showing them around. And I think the last time we had spoke with Eric, in that they've got the funds available to jumpstart what they want to get jump started, and which is good news. It just sounded like what they needed to do is get the parties all on the same page to get things moving forward. And I think the big thing for us is to check in with Eric. We had talked about trying to get the governor up here at a luncheon to talk about the importance of the airport, and potentially make an announcement about potential funding that will go toward that effort. And that's one thing we need to follow up on. Excuse me. So John has asked me just to briefly get into the federal side of things. We had invited FTI Consulting, who is doing consulting work for the Coalition to Protect America's Regional Airports. Unfortunately, we got to them in short order. They are unable to be here this morning, but they did send me some talking points. And I think it can be summed up that we have a new administration coming in, and we're speculating right now on what may or may not happen in some of the changes that are going on. So I'll just read the first paragraph that Greg Metcher from FTI had wrote. He said the Trump administration's approach to the U.S. aviation industry is likely to prioritize, deregulation, infrastructure investment, technology advancements, and an attitude of not getting a thumb on the scale when it comes to competition policy. While those policies may reduce regulation burdens on airlines and manufacturers, they could also reshape consumer protection, environmental policies, travel costs, and international trade policies. Now, with any administrations, there are plus or minuses. What impacts I'm personally looking forward to seeing what happens over the course of the next 4 years. What I'll do, Mr. Chairman, because this thing is 5 pages long, I actually resized the font so I could read it. That's why it's went from 4 to 5 pages, and sent it out to all of you to read over. And it's got a lot of great information in here. It doesn't specifically narrow down to the impact on DCA or Dulles Airport. Obviously, what happens with the aviation industry is always a concern for us, because ultimately they will have impacts on the business of the aviation, whether for good or whether for bad. I will note that in one of the prior meetings that we have had with FTI, the concern was if Trump did win the election, that there might be some effort to go ahead and even expand further, allowing more flights to go into DCA. And so we're going to have to kind of watch any effort on that. And particularly, the thought was that something may occur with respect to coming from Senator Ted Cruz's office. And so that is something we do need to keep an eye on. So with that, John, I'll yield the time over because we only have about 6 minutes left.
Yep. I'll briefly, I wanted to highlight the trade policies and international competition, right? I know tariffs get the headline, but the fact is already Canada has changed some positions and started buying some more products based on the scare of the tariffs, right? Mexico has changed some of their policies based on the threat of the tariffs. So with the trade policies and international competition, there's only one way to do that in this area. And when they want to come and beg or argue with the new administration, they come through Dulles, right? What does that look like? How do we think about the hospitality? How do we leverage that and be welcoming for new businesses and opportunities, right? That's why we got the 2 economic development folks that are with us. I think we're in a wonderful place. And just to piggyback, so that today at 10 o'clock, Sean Duffy is going to be former congressman up for the Secretary of Transportation. He's going to have his testimony. I'll try to tune into that and take a look and see what's happening there as well. But that's another office that we need to be thinking about. Maybe get him out to Dulles as part of his welcome. It's an easy trip for them locally, so they can say they're out visiting airports. But certainly we'll do that with MWA. I would love for us to be invited when the governor comes. Richard and MWA always include Committee for Dulles when anybody goes to Dulles. I don't know that we're in that point yet. I know they do, Scott, with you with the ribbon cuttings, but I'd love to get a little bit more in depth for at least you and the president get invited to all these VIP briefings they do. One other thing the governor talked about, he wanted to increase Virginia's opportunity scholarships and how important it was in education. We're doing that, right? I mean, so think about the wonderful program. Mark Treadway is helping us, leading us on that. We're already doing some of the things the governor's talking about. They got a new aviation program at Westfields. I'm going to try to get them to come on and we'll do a Zoom so we can learn more about those programs. We're actually leading where the governor is trying to take the Commonwealth for some of those areas. So I'm really excited about the new administration, where the governor's going, some of the things we can do, because we've got the chair for transportation in the for both the Senate and the House of Delegates. Just a thought on a few ideas of things that I'm thinking about. Drones have got a lot of attention. Hopefully they don't get more attention after the inauguration. But when you look for some competency and expertise in drones, I think people look to the airport to find out what's happening. I was on a Fairfax County drone study group for a year on how the police and law enforcement use drones. But I think the airport would be great if it had a voice or had positions on drones. Human trafficking, you know, it's a hot button for our delegate and the chair of transportation. It's something we should be aware of and be conversant in for what's happening with human trafficking and how big of an issue it is at the airport. Same thing with fentanyl and drug use. If that's coming in through the airport, we should know about it and how to limit that. Education and job creation. We're doing that with United. We're doing that with construction, with the new, concourses that we're building out at the airport, the expansion, looking at the future master plan, all involves jobs and opportunities around the airport. It is a great place to be. We start thinking about what we're trying to do with the job creation, as well as the education and how to help our employees out there. The governor always talks about maritime, but he forgets aviation. You should never say the word maritime without saying aviation. And I got to find a way to get the Secretary of Commerce and keep reminding them to plug that in. I know VEDP always puts the ports of Virginia up front. I like them to talk about the ports, plural, of Virginia, the seaport and the airport. And we just got to just make our voice heard. And then the other one is housing and transportation. Didn't get a lot of attention with the governor's State of the Commonwealth. We need to be thinking about workforce housing. Those 28,000 employees at the airport are not the highest paid. There are some great, well-paid people, right? The pilots and all folks, but we got folks out there with batons in the middle of the night and shoveling snow, and fire department, law enforcement, and just people working at the cash registers at all the retail. We need to be thinking about how do we get workforce housing? That's why 28 and 66 are so crowded, as people are trying to get out to Prince William and out to Fauquier County and further west. So we need to be thinking about those things as well. And then the last thing to wrap it up is more about trade and tourism, because I think the hospitality industry is something else. We could do better. We need more representation in throughout the DMV about the hospitality industry, because they all benefit from all the folks that come through the airport. And I'd love to see us get more active as we talk about membership, Scott, and all the efforts. Same thing with communications. I think there's a few areas that we can kind of build off of, and I'll definitely make sure I get back to Brandon to kind of share some of those thoughts and visions. I didn't leave a lot of time, but I wanted to open it up for folks. I'm probably more interested in some of the thoughts and ideas that you might have on some of the reflections and the things you heard today. Stephen?
I'm sorry, hit the wrong button.
No. Anybody have anything? Okay, Mike, are you building new hotels? You're not going to be in the area? He's good. Okay.
Sorry, I'm fighting technology while trying to come down 270. No,
Yeah.
out there looking for more hotels, and definitely interested in the Dulles Tech corridor, in and around, and have found today's information, especially from our new mayor for Herndon, really informative, and just hoping to continue to learn more and find ways that ShareCon can turn around and partner with everybody that is part of Committee for Dulles.
That's awesome. Thanks, Mike. And, Scott, one of the things we could probably post up is some of the great speakers. I was going through the website again. We've had some wonderful folks. We need to have and highlight all the award winners, and maybe there's a brag wall that we can post, because you really have done some great things the last couple of years. And as Kevin talked about, looking forward, we can look a little bit back, but we don't have to go all the way back for 60 years. We can be thinking forward a little bit and bragging about it. Anybody else? Jeff?
Agreed.
Jeff, big pictures. What do you got? Take us off the and into the workday. What do you got?
Yeah, I just want to give you a shout out. You really have done a fantastic job with this committee, and it's so fantastic to hear all the good things. Kevin is that's unbelievable, the stuff. He is literally day one hit the ground running with all kind of great ideas. So I'm really excited about Herndon and what he's going to do there. I will tell you, we're focused on the economy and inflation. When the CPI report came out this morning, came in hot again. It was consensus, but it's still up. So November or October, it was 2.6. November is 2.7. December came in this morning at 2.9. If you look at the Federal Reserve, they dropped 100 basis points in their rates last year, and they are controlling the short term. But you would think that the market would correlate, and actually, if you look at the 10-year Treasury, it actually went up 100 basis points. So the bond market is not in agreement that we have slayed inflation, and that's where the bigger and smarter money is. So it leads me to believe that we still got quite a fight on our hands. And if you just start thinking about delinquency and where the consumer is with this higher inflation, we are at record credit card delinquency, record consumer loan delinquency, and the bigger one specifically for community banks, because they have the bulk of their portfolio in commercial real estate. The office delinquency rate is over 11%, and you got to go all the way back to 2000 to get to that level. So the economy is not well, and we're not even in reference to what Trump may or may not do, and Musk with the efficiency program. So we've got some real interesting days in front of us.
Hey, Jeff, can you address the, obviously the wildfires? Not looking for a solution to how to fight fires, but I'm worried about the hit to the insurance, some of the industries. Where do we get the, however many billions of dollars went into replacing it? You got the Olympics coming up in 28. They're all going to want to race ahead. I don't know that we as a country can really, after coming off of the hurricanes and now looking at the wildfires, thinking about the impact the insurance business, it becomes a national hit to the economy as well. Thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. We actually have properties, some home equities, some first mortgages in California that are burnt. They're gone. I think most of our properties had insurance on it, but kind of like Florida, where you just can't afford the insurance if you can get it, California is going to be in the same boat. So I don't know where this goes, but you can already see real estate prices plummeting in Florida, especially if you look at the condo, where they have to go in and look at the structure and stability and maybe assess large amounts to the existing condo owners. Florida's a mess. Now California's a mess. Two very large influential states to our economy. Again, we got some really crazy stuff coming at us.
So, boy, that's great intel, Jeff. Thank you so much. I just want to throw two names out there: Northrop Grumman and SAIC. Some of the bigger companies that used to be headquartered out on the West Coast in California, they both relocated back to Northern Virginia. And I think that's another model. If I had businesses out there at some point, I know I saw one of the movie stars talking about people looking at property in Miami and how they're going to relocate. We know some of the tech companies have looked at Texas. I think we're a draw. I think people are saying, I need to look at people. I need some stability. Northern Virginia, close to the power central of DC, we are definitely a place people need to be looking at. That's why the cargo, it's all about the airport. It starts with the airport. We're doing the right things with Committee for Dulles, pulling in Loudoun and Fairfax County. And Scott, I can't thank you enough for your leadership with Committee for Dulles. But I think if we clear this vision, we make sure our voices are heard down at Richmond as well as up on the Hill, we can continue to be power players and direct this. It's going to help us in the future. Okay, Scott, over to you. Wrap it up. Thanks for giving me the time, and great meeting. Thanks everybody for joining.